Welcome to the Manifestation Lab. This is your host, Kelly Howe. From the grounded science to the mystical and unseen, we're investigating this big experiment we call life and finding what really works when it comes to manifesting a life that sets your heart and your soul on fire. Welcome to the lab. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Manifestation Lab. I want to tell you guys, I am really setting the intention for 2024 to really get more consistent with my podcast. I know. I am very much healing my relationship with consistency. I'm an Aquarius. I live like out there in airland, and I sometimes don't like structure. So I'm working on that. I'm healing it, and that's my goal. So just wanted to let you all know that I'm really going to be attempting to stick to that for next year. But getting on to today's episode, you guys know I never shy away from going deep with guests, but seriously, you guys, we go deep in today's conversation. I did not anticipate all the things we were going to talk about, but I am so grateful that we did. The conversation that we had is so freaking important. It is something that I think needs to be talked about with our children, with our siblings, with our parents, with everyone in our family, with friends, family. I mean, it's just so important. We go deep into a story of addiction, even life-threatening addictions, pain, and what it looks like to rise from the ashes. It is an inspiring story. It is also likely going to be triggering in some ways. I want to just kind of put that out there. Please pause this if you get overwhelmed with emotion. Some of it goes pretty deep. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. My guest today is Ethan Jones. Ethan is the owner, founder of Mind Right Wellness here in town. He built this business from a spare bedroom with just $500. And his passion for holistic well-being and the belief in the transformative power of plant medicine just like oozes out of him. He so believes in his craft and what he does. And Mind Right Wellness really is a leading light for those seeking a natural path to a better health. Ethan's journey has been fueled by a singular mission to empower you to harness the gifts of nature for your wellness. Mind Right specializes in a curated selection of natural herbal health products, carefully chosen to enhance immune health, provide pain relief, offer anxiety support, and promote restful sleep. They have a unparalleled commitment to customer service, and I can speak to that. The first time, actually, every time I've been in the store, whether it's Ethan or someone else, like everyone has been absolutely so friendly and so informative and so helpful. And I always walk out of there knowing more, and honestly with a lot of products, because I believe in what they're doing there. So they really are a trusted ally in your wellness journey. If you're not here locally in Columbia, Missouri, you can find them online as well. And we'll drop their website in the show notes for you, so that's easy to access there. Mind Right Wellness truly is more than just a store. They are a movement. And Ethan says that he envisions a future where the healing virtues of plant health and medicine are universally embraced. I too share that vision, and it was truly on my path of seeking some more natural alternatives for things like focus, pain. What else? What was I looking for? Oh, I know. I may have shared with you guys this very sad story. Actually, it's not that sad. It's kind of funny at this point. But a little over a year ago, coffee stopped tasting good to me. And it was really funny because it took me about a month to realize that every morning I was still getting up and making myself a giant cup of coffee the way that I like it, with lots of cream and with cinnamon. And every day I was throwing away like 9/10 of my cup of coffee. And I thought, God, I'm really wasting a lot here. And then I kind of got conscious about it and realized when I would take a few sips that it just didn't taste good anymore. It tastes bitter. And quite honestly, I just feel my body pulling away from it, which is so weird. I've drank coffee for over 20 years, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, she must have just had COVID and her taste buds changed. I'm not saying that didn't happen. But my previous known time to have COVID was about 9 months before that. And yes, I did lose taste buds for a little while and my sense of smell, but it came right back. And so I don't think it was that. I don't know. Another interesting piece of this is that about a month before I stopped liking coffee before it just started tasting like trash to me. I was working my way through an intuitive course and trying to learn how to remote view. I need to get back to that course. I never finished it because sometimes I'm really bad about that. But this is a reminder to myself. I'm going to get back to that. Anyhow, one of the things that he recommends in this course is that you quit drinking coffee because he says that caffeine is one of the things that can really block your intuition. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I heard him say that, I was like, yeah, whatever. I really didn't take it seriously at all. But I did at the same time set the intention that if that was right for me, that maybe I would just stop. And lo and behold, about a month later, it might have even just been a week or two, honestly. It may not have even been a full month, but it just started tasting really bad. And so I had to give up coffee. And long story leading to, it has really pushed me to try to find a coffee alternative, something that helps wake me up in the morning, something that's warm and comforting, tastes good, something that can help me focus and really replaces that habit, because I love the habit of drinking a warm beverage in the morning and doing that with my husband. It's kind of part of our morning ritual. So honestly, that was the hardest part of it, was just trying to find something to replace what I was already doing. And yes, I tried to just not do that habit for a while. But ultimately that's not what I wanted to do. So I've tried several different like mushroom coffee mixes. I mean, obviously a million types of herbal teas and matcha. Interestingly, even with matcha, I realized after I stopped drinking coffee that I have way more of a sensitivity to caffeine than I ever realized before. And I think it was probably the cause of at least a little bit of my anxiety on a regular basis. Maybe some of my heart palpitations, that kind of thing. Because now even just like a little bit of caffeine, I really feel it, even if I drink like some hot chocolate or even have like a little piece of chocolate. So, okay, thank you, universe, because apparently I did need to back away from my caffeine just a touch. So, anyway, that led me down a journey of really trying to find some kind of natural alternative that was just as satisfying, if not more. And I ended up wandering into Mind Right Wellness at the recommendation of a really good friend of mine who really loves their products, and just struck up a conversation with somebody who worked there, and ended up learning a ton about medicinal mushrooms that I didn't know. I ended up learning a ton about something called Kratom, or you'll hear it called Kratom. It is a highly controversial subject, but we're going to get into it today. And yes, I have been trying Kratom. Ethan sells a very high quality product of Kratom. You don't want to buy that everywhere. And we are going to talk about that in the episode. But the Kratom is really helping with alertness, with motivation, a little bit with pain, even. So it's interesting. That's all I will say. It is highly controversial. We'll talk all about that. But I'm so looking forward to this conversation and sharing it with you all, because we do talk and go deep and talk a lot about addiction. And of course, that is a very important subject to me because it is close to my heart. I've talked about that on the podcast before, that I grew up surrounded by addiction and really watched my dad struggle with addiction really off and on most of his life. We all have addictions. There's been times, obviously, I was a little bit too addicted to coffee. So maybe just reflect on yourself, whether it be something that is what I would call like a life-threatening or a very harmful addiction, or maybe just something that feels compulsive. You might reflect on some of the ways that you could be more mindful of choosing some of these products to help you work through some of that compulsion and even addiction. So without further ado, I'm so happy to bring you our conversation. Oh, and really quickly before we launch in, just a quick reminder that this is for informational purposes only. We are not doctors, we are not therapists, and we are not trying to prescribe anything. We are truly just offering information. If you have questions, please consult your health provider, your mental health provider, whoever that may be that you trust and can help you make those decisions, and find out if that is something that might be right for you. Okay, enjoy. I am really fascinated with the products that you have in your store, and I'm just really excited to share it with our listeners, because a lot of them have very much helped me with things that I've been struggling with. So For our listeners, I have Ethan Jones here today. He's the owner of Mind Right in Columbia, Missouri, right on Broadway. Such a fabulous wellness store. We're going to talk about all kinds of things that you have in there, hopefully, but functional mushrooms, kratom, crystals, CBD. What else you got in there?
Yeah, you kind of listed it. We have a huge selection of herbal teas too.
Oh,
Can't
that's
forget
right.
that.
Yeah.
Lots of tea, lots of herbs, raw herbs. Said the kratom, big kratom people help a lot of people with kratom because it's very misunderstood. Cannabis people, of course, and then the mushrooms have been huge.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people don't know a lot about and gives us a lot of value.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like the mushroom world is exploding right now. So you're like in the right place at the right time. And I'd like to start with, if you're okay with talking about how you ended up, with this type of store, with these really unique products that are so useful and functional and like really people need and don't know about. So how did you end up here? Are you okay with telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, it's been always a journey, right? You don't just like decide one day you wake up and build all of this and know what to provide, right? That typically comes from experience. And I've gone through a lot in my own life, which has created a lot of understanding on what to do, how to do it, and why it matters, So I guess the story could start like when I was younger, obviously, growing up and everything. I came up in an era that everything was very unhealthy.
Food wise.
Yeah, I was born in like 95. So like early 2000s, everything was just like heavily marketing, bunch sugars, like not a lot of understanding.
Low fat, high sugar.
Yeah, right.
Lots of additives.
And we're from the country. So like, rural country folk, they don't really understand a lot of that, pleasure, foods, eating, stuff of that nature. It's generational. So you see like grandma's heavy, mom's heavy, you're probably going to be heavy because you're just big boned or something, So I was always an athlete. So I was just lucky enough. I wasn't like entirely like falling apart in that sense. But, things change, especially when like you're not able to do activity. And so I think a lot of my understanding on health and wellness started to stem from when I was like 17. Yeah, I was a senior in high school. I was going through a lot at that time. Like my parents just got divorced, which is a really odd age to go through all that, So I had a lot of like, oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, high school, really like we're kind of figuring ourselves out anyway, and then it's like the rug gets pulled out from underneath you at the same time. Yeah.
My sis and older brother, they're already gone, so I was stuck at the house going through all this craziness. And then I was playing football my senior year, and I was very much a party guy, right? Like I've been drinking alcohol since I was like 14. And so, I mean, by the age 21, I actually quit drinking, which is odd for people to even think about, like, cause I already had a problem by then. And so I was very much into that. I was very ego driven. I was actually going to join the Marine Corps. Cause I was just trying to get out of my hometown. Like I wasn't going to go to school. I wasn't that type of person. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Right. Like, and all that was just based off of what I thought people would think of me, like, oh, I want to be that guy. Right. And so that was my plan. And I wasn't really giving a crap about anything or anyone until that happened. And then, like I said, I was playing football and I blew my entire knee out, actually. So I tore like 3 ligaments in my knee. So I had surgery. And so that was kind of devastating to me because I actually like lost my ability to go to the Marine Corps, Yeah. And so I wasn't prepared for anything. This was already into my senior year of high school, basically just screw off classes, whatever, And so that was like, oh no, reality kind of hit real fast right there. And I was not prepared for much. And so I was going through having my own little pity party there. And also with that, I realized, holy crap, I'm getting like super fat because I'm not moving, I'm not doing exercise, and I'm still eating ridiculous, sodas, Big Macs,
Right.
whatever, you know,
And you went from being a constant athlete to just dropping
to
down doing nothing.
230 pounds of straight body fat. You know, it was wicked. I wasn't able to move around, but also in that meantime, throughout surgery, I got heavily addicted to pain pills, so narcotics. And
And you were a senior, so 18?
yeah, I graduated when I was 17. I was younger for my
okay.
class,
Yeah.
but yeah, that all started when I was like 17. And so from 17 to about a little over 20 years old, I was just a flying mess. You know, I tried to go to school for a little bit, didn't work out, just wasn't able, it wasn't for me. And then,
So I'm curious, before we move
Yeah.
on, were you one of the Oxy people
yeah,
that got
for
sucked
sure.
into that?
Like that all
Yeah.
started, not a lot of people, surprisingly, at the time of like 2012, knew a lot about that kind of issue, which is, you know,
Well, because it was still being claimed to be safe
Yeah.
and effective and not addictive.
and doctors
so,
were still writing scripts at this time.
Oh, like
and
it
no big
was
deal.
candy. Yeah,
Nobody
I mean-
talked to us about things like, you know, again, you know, being from where we're at, like most people just, you know, you trust your family doctor or whatever. And we don't know anything about medicine, you know, and so I didn't know anything about that either, but it felt good. And I was already going through things. And so I was just, you know, pop a couple of those and drink a bunch of whiskey. And I'd be doing some crazy shit. You know, I'd be punching holes in
yeah.
walls, you know, wicked, wild, addict behavior. I'm not, it's just, if you would be able to see what I was then and what I am now, it just wouldn't be of the same, you know?
Right,
and that's just
right.
the healing that I've gone through and the understanding I've created and the peace that I've had to build within myself, because drugs take a lot of that away from people. They turn people into something that they never, or monsters in some ways, you know? And so, believe it or not, so I was with my girlfriend, which is now my wife. She's still with me through all of this. It's crazy. She's the strongest saint person I know, you know? And like, God bless her. God put her in my life for a big reason. And so all of that happened, you know, I was going through all of this. I dropped out of school. I was really frustrated. You know, I was getting clean. I got clean off of narcotics because I about lost my girlfriend at the time, you know,
And how old were you when that happened?
like 20. Yeah, like 19, 20-ish. I can't remember a whole lot.
So by 20, you were already dealing with drug and alcohol
Oh, yeah.
addiction.
I was already
and
into alcohol since that can back up even earlier. I got exposed to a lot of these things. Just my older sister, her ex-husband, he's a you know, ex-military Iraq vet. You know, he got back and he was not good. You know, and I was like 13. I was in like 7th, 8th grade at the time. And that was like a huge era of like the fake K2 stuff. I don't know if you remember like fake
Yeah, I
cannabis and
do.
stuff. That stuff
Yeah.
is wicked. It's not a drug.
And
It's like
it's-
a heavy drug, right? It's not weed.
I don't know what it is.
So it's a synthetic cannabinoid. It's just literally a chemical. It's a chemical
Yeah.
that can't be. It wasn't made illegal because it was a legal compound. I mean, it's just a scientific research
I
compound.
do remember though when it came
Yep.
out and
It'd
like
be sold at gas stations, malls,
Yeah.
little kiosks. Like, but this is like a synthetic, entirely synthetic drug that's just sprayed on like clippings of like herbs, and people smoke it because it was totally legal. But also, a lot of the vet dudes or active military guys liked it because it wouldn't pop on drug tests because you can't test for it, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and this man, I mean, and he was like my best friend, right? You know, he was going through his own shit, but he needed a little buddy to do it with, and so here I am, you know. Hey, you know, I'm gonna hang out, and so I'm getting blasted off like at like age 13 with synthetic drugs. And
man.
it changed my entire personality. It made me a very negative person when I wasn't that way. I was just an innocent kid at the time before I touched drugs like that. So it turned me into a very, you know, he was heavily into like porn too, you know? And so that totally warped my mind and how I treated women, you know? It was very odd. And again, he was just going through his own shit too. And so, looking back at it now, I can't ever even blame him because he just didn't even know how to handle things because he didn't have the help either. And I miss him because of that, because we just, it's like losing a best friend when they, he got into it so bad that he was like, hitting my sister and crazy shit like this.
No.
And so, God bless her. She finally got enough nerve left, and that was hard for me because I was like losing a friend too, and so, but he was also buying me alcohol, the UV blues and shit.
Unhealthy.
Oh, it was a bad friendship or relationship.
Unhealthy friendship, yeah.
And some days I wonder how I would have ever turned out if I never even was interacting with somebody of that nature,
Yeah, so I want to pause there because so many people end up in addiction because they have trauma and they're trying to, people say escape. I don't necessarily think that's the right word.
Yeah.
I mean, on one level, yes, like get out of the pain.
Yeah.
But that's how I look at it, is like they're just trying to get out of the pain however they can.
They think they know how to do it.
So was there any piece of that, and you don't have to share anything in particular, but was there any piece of that where at 13, even though you were being guided in by this friend, older person, that you were like found a way out of some of the discomfort you were feeling?
From the use of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. I thought I was the best, right? Like I was riding so high on all that shit for so long, so numb to everything, that it all came to a head at this one point when I'm about to tell you when I got clean. And it's because I never realized, and drugs and alcohol have such a numbing ability to where you just don't fully understand or have the capability to understand how your actions hurt people, because all you think of yourself. That's addict mentality, and so it all came to a head one night. I got super wasted on, I'd literally drink like full fifths of whiskey in a night, just like thinking it's fun. And so I, got way bombed on that stuff. And then, I was a heavy cheating guy. I talk about this openly because it's something that also a lot of other men have major issues with. It's this like insecurity thing. And that's really where it derives from, is major insecurity, trying to find your self-worth through sexual acts or just trying to dominate. Right. And I got that a lot from that porn addiction and that male mentality that was being driven into me because it's cool, and it's not cool, actually. It's not at all. It's actually...
I appreciate you talking about that.
It needs to be talked
people
about.
People don't talk about porn addiction enough.
They don't.
And it's so...
it's a drug.
It is a drug, and it is such a vortex of negativity.
Yes.
And I don't say that in any sort of, I'm not a prude. I'm very comfortable with my sexuality. Sure. I want other people to be comfortable.
I'm about to have a baby. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. But I think it's just a very unhealthy way. And energetically, because I like to look at things from...
entirely.
Right. Like I like to look at things from the energetic dynamic in a relationship of like one person is putting all their attention on something that is completely outside of the relationship. Yep. Right. I guess there's, toxic relationships where both people are involved, but a lot of times it's one person. Sure. Right. And so all of that attention is going somewhere else. And, orgasms are like one of the most powerful manifestation tools on the planet. Yeah. I mean, in the universe, right?
It's healthy.
Because our vibration gets high. It releases all these wonderful hormones for our well-being. Just the energetic connection, right? Like it's just so
it's good. It's a beautiful thing. Until it's not, until it's being used to a means to an end, right?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. If you're using that kind of manifestation power while you're focusing on porn, and that's not focused on your partner.
It drains
and focused
everything out of us.
It does. It drains.
And also the expectations that change, right? Like you're an addict, right? So just like if you're doing drugs, you start here, but now you need more of this to reach this, right? Like it's no different, and it reflects 100% directly into your relationship and the way you talk to your partner and the way you respect them and love them. You're going to get me emotional because it's so evil and it's not fair. It's never fair to your partner and to have these ideas, that are so demented, and then...
It's not real
sex. It's not real. And then you're acting as if your partner's not good enough now. And then you start to seek other things, right? And so, I was...
And you can't blame, a young kid who this has been their only experience,
you know, I mean, I think most of us have experiences with seeing things like that when we were kids, whether we were watching hardcore porn or not, magazines that were laying around or whatever. But like, we can't blame kids if they're exposed early
They
and they
don't
have
know.
absolutely no other context. The only thing they're learning is from what they're seeing on these videos and what they got in health class, which is
Nothing.
like nothing,
No.
you know,
Nobody
like
wants
the
to
very,
have
very
these
basic
conversation with kids,
Yeah.
and I love to have these conversations with kids because we're all trapped in these same ways, and they know, and your body always knows, your spirit knows that this isn't right. Like even masturbation for men is just, these are all things that need to be regulated within ourselves, internalized, you know?
Right. Anything that gets compulsive
Yes.
is dangerous.
You're always seeking something, and that's addict mentality again. Like I know from the things I've done and gone through that created a switch in me to be that addict. I was never that way until I started using those things. So any and everything that ever made a release for me, I was that times 10, right? And that was the same thing with my cheating. Like it was not good. And
So what was the moment, right, where this
Yeah.
like all turned around for you?
so that night, I was telling you, I got super blacked out on whiskey, whatever, and I come home thinking I could do anything I want, right? And I passed out in my bed next to my girlfriend at the time, again, now my wife. And my phone was just like blowing up. This is right when like Tinder came out, you know, these were that time, like 20, whatever. And it was just blowing up, and I was passed out drunk, and she just goes over my phone and just is like going through, and she's like, it's like 2 a.m. And I wake up and she's screaming at me, and I mean, obviously, I ripped her heart out. You know, there's no doubt about that. Like, she was heartbroken. She gave everything to me, but she also came from a lot of trauma herself. So she didn't even realize how much she was being abused. You know what I mean? It was that bad. It was that bad between the both of us, that she just gravitated to that type of negative man, right? You know?
Because it's familiar. It's
Exactly.
familiar. Even if it's painful, it's familiar, and it's really weird how is
always begging for that acceptance, you know? And so we've gone through our own healing journeys together. Like, that's the beauty of why I'm so in love with my wife, is because we came from a place of a lot of hurt to build into something that's special and beautiful. And like you were saying, you know, those intimate moments now are actually special, you know, like it's actually a great thing for us now. But I almost lost her. Like, literally, she was done. Like, why not? You know, fully understand. I
can imagine.
Fully understand why. But I also realized I was repeating a lot of what my dad was. And that hurt a lot. Because at the time I resented him tremendously. But there is no reason to. My dad's a great guy. He's a great man. He's a great father. I was just very angry and mad at the time. And because of some of the things that he did, I realized, like, I'm repeating everything just out of my own pain, you know, blaming everything on everyone else. Never my fault. Everything else is happening to me, right? And it wasn't until, like, I saw her and just seeing her break down into a million pieces, I begged for her to not leave me, because it was all I had left. Anything stable was her, and she was an absolute rock, because I also at this time had no relationship with God. God was gone. It was very dark.
I think that's probably the most common denominator in addiction.
Very much so. They lost themselves. They lost any ability to love, even love themselves. All you love is drugs. And that changed me when I fully understood that and realized that, and then saw her at that exact moment. It hit me like a million pounds of bricks or whatever, that I was doing all of this, and it was crushing her, and I had no one to blame but myself. And it really was a hard pill to swallow when I made that full realization. And then I understood, if I want something better in my life, it's going to have to come from me. I have to do the work, you know?
That's a huge awakening moment.
It was.
It's huge.
It was the pain in her eyes that made me understand that my actions have consequences, and who am I to walk around and just hurt people? Right? And some people go through their whole life doing this shit. entirely, abusing their wives over years and years, physically even, and I bet eventually that's probably what it even got to. Who knows? I was such a fucking monster between how much I hated myself in the world. Lord knows what I would have done eventually with the drugs in my life.
Well, let me just stop for a second and say, what a courageous thing for you to do, to tell your story.
Thank you.
I know this isn't the first time for you probably telling it, but
this is actually on that one. That was the first time.
Yeah. So thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
And, our listeners probably know, but you might not know, I grew up around addiction as well. My dad was a longtime alcoholic. And during my younger years, probably between I was like 2 and I think it was around 12 when he finally stopped. He was a heroin addict.
Shit, yeah.
And pills, like really
Very
anything he could get his hands on. So I'm very comfortable like knowing and talking about addiction. I did my first research project on addiction when I was like in 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
It might have been 4th grade. I kind of go back and forth. I was
You're
really,
fully
really
awake
young.
to that.
I was like, I need to understand what's going on. And I needed to understand, like I did my first, research project on opium.
Oh, wow.
And like wanting to understand, like, how does this work? I love science. I always have.
It is kind of neat. Drug science is neat.
It's super,
It explains a lot of why people do what they do and how they act. Because it's not necessarily the people, it's about these chemical drugs and all kinds of drugs that we put into ourselves that create those abandonment issues, that ruin children's lives because parents can't decide what is right, what is supposed to be focused on and not, because drugs become only that forefront in your head.
Right.
And you leave your whole family for it.
I've had to do so much healing on the abandonment, and not only just related to the drugs, but because he moved to Florida when I was very little. And so it was literally like it was true abandonment. He was gone. Yeah, it hurt. But he's also one of my spirit guides now. So
they always,
he always encourages me to talk about it because
as you should.
Going back to the porn thing, going back to the addiction thing, it's such a topic that people don't want to dig into. And I'm like, let's fucking talk about it. Because it everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere. And I think people don't understand that it's not just a moral weakness, right? That's so little of the issue. It is this chemical dependency. But it is also so much of the time, and this was the part that I didn't understand until I was much older, was it is about trauma.
Sure.
And I don't know about you, but like I believe that we're still working through trauma from past lives and
that
ancestral stuff.
So
generational trauma is
reflects
absolutely
into
real.
the way parents parent, and that itself reflects into the kids and their upbringing.
Right.
I've had to work through all of these things, and it all makes sense now, right? And that's where now having that understanding and that full realization of how these things work, I can always make sure that I will break those chains. And that's what you're saying right there is exactly what I realized, and exactly why I wanted to make a real personal change, is because I refuse to recreate that cycle and then hurt the one person that loves me most through all the times that she should have never loved me. And I told her straight to her face, I was like, Brittany, if you just please give me one more chance, I promise you I'll be a good man. I promise you I will be the man that you need me to be, that I will be by your side as a partner, and I will never do this to you again. I promise you this. And it took her a long time to build that trust back with me, and as she totally should. I had to work for that, to earn it, and I showed up every single day for it, and I showed up every day, and I never quit, and I still do to this day. Every single day I think about that, every single day I've forgiven myself. I'm okay with it. That's why I can talk about this, and I'm okay with it, and we talk about it because it doesn't even matter. However, the story matters, because there's so many people that can relate a lot of that, that's still trying to figure out their own issues and why they're treating people the way they are, or even themselves. Because I was heavily depressed, heavily suicidal, right? Like nothing was good in my life, but there was a lot of good. I just couldn't understand that. No, I wasn't connected.
What would you say about for people, if they're listening, they have addicts in their life, if they have a son or a daughter or a partner or parent that's really struggling with addiction, do you believe that we can get through to people, or is that like totally an inside job?
It's 100% inside job. You can tell people and an addict anything and everything. You could tell them how much you love them and how much you want this and that for them. It don't matter unless they fully hear you and want that for themselves. And a lot of times, some people never reach to the point because they love those drugs so much and they have such a misunderstanding on why they're even doing the drugs that they don't ever realize that a lot of this is them. A lot of this is their choice now.
They're still in that blame
For sure.
victim mentality.
Yep. And they live in
projecting all that pain out on
every
other
time,
people.
you know. And so it comes at a time that when you had enough, you had enough. And there's resources for people out there that need that, you know.
I just wanted to ask, because as a person that grew up with that kind of addiction around me, it is unbelievably painful, right? To watch somebody go through that and feel like there's nothing you can do. And yes, we tell them we love them and we can offer resources, but
nothing matters.
That is like, I think one of my soul, biggest lessons I've learned in this life is to be able to say it truly is like you can offer resources and help and love. And it just comes down to they have to make that decision. They have to make that choice.
They have to make the choice. And then once they do, it's game on. And then doing things right. What we do with addicts and how we tell them to get off drugs and do the whole sober process, it's criminal. It's not possible. That's why there's incredible high failure rates. And it brings me to a lot of what I do and why I do things, right?
Yeah. Let's get into
we'll
that
talk
a little
about
bit.
that in a sec. What I want to talk about real quick is how I actually got into that. And the reason why I got into it was back to where I was saying I just dropped out of school and all these things. It's kind of a funny story how it all came to be. I actually moved back home. I'm from California, Missouri, so just a small town, and there's a ham factory out there.
Ham?
Ham.
Okay.
Yeah. Literally big,
ham
juicy
factory.
hams. Burger
Okay.
Smokehouse. They do.
I don't know where I thought they came from, but of course they come from a factory.
It's one of the biggest ham factories in the country.
Wow.
Yep, crazy enough. Bacon, ham, all this.
Does the whole town smell like ham?
A lot of it.
It does, yeah.
A lot of it. And so I was working there, going nowhere with my life, having no clue what to do. At least I wasn't addicted to hard drugs anymore. I was still drinking a little bit, but I wasn't doing what I was doing. Introduced a little bit of cannabis into my life. That was a godsend. And one day, this lady walked into my wife's store. She works at the Buckle clothing store there in Jeff City. And asked, hey, do you know anybody who would want a job here at GNC? She owned all the GNCs in town, Columbia, Jeff City, Springfield. Her name's Jan. She saved my life, straight up. She's like a mother to me in a lot of ways, especially a business mom is what I say. She taught me a lot. She gave me a chance, and she just, my wife was like, yeah, my boyfriend used to play football. And so she's like, he's hired. and so
He used to be into fitness.
whatever, sure.
You know?
I didn't know shit about any of it, but so she got my number from Brittany, and she texted me. She's like, hey, Ethan, go ahead and swing into the store and grab a polo from David. It looks like you're going to be working at GNC. And like, I was like, bet anything
right,
to get me
let's
the
go.
fuck out of this factory, and so I got a part-time job at GNC, and that is where my whole life changed straight up. I was very heavy. I was not in shape, and so working at GNC. Again, I had no knowledge of any of this stuff. I took a protein one time in 7th grade,
Yeah, like total newbie.
Yeah, like
and then you're suddenly in the
I'm selling
store.
it now. So, okay, here I am. However, the manager there, David, he was a wizard of all this stuff. Like, I mean, he taught me everything. I mean, I just sat there and I would ask him a million questions. We're walking around the store. What's this? Then they had a whole herb wall, and so I would just literally spend hours going through each and every alphabetical order and like chassberry, all these random things, and I'd just dig in and read because I had time. I wasn't going to school.
You must have enjoyed it,
I
too.
loved it.
To be able, you were just like soaking it up like a sponge.
Absolutely loved it. Learned how to do sales, learned how to, because at this time I could barely talk to people. I was so insecure. I had no public speaking ability. I was very quiet, and so I really found my voice. I found somewhere that I actually fit in well, and so I started going to the gym, met my best friend, Jared, there. He runs the supplement superstores here in town. Yeah, he's awesome. He taught me a little bit about working out, started going to the gym. Started to lose the fat, started to feel good, started to realize, holy crap, I've been killing myself this whole time. No one knows anything about nutrition. Nobody knows even how to exercise because we've been marketed and sold for years. Bowflex and all this crazy stuff. Hydroxy cuts, you know?
Oh,
it's
my
like,
gosh,
holy
yeah.
shit. So I was like, oh my God, I'm having such a realization. And like, this was before like kind of, you know, Instagram and all that kind of stuff where like the fitness influencer stuff got real big. So I was like, man, you know what, Jared, we can maybe do something with this stuff. Like, dude, let's figure it out. And then Jared left GNC not long after that because Supplement Superstore came into town. And I needed a full-time job. I was just working part-time, and then I started working part-time at the YMCA, actually, to pay for my gym membership. You know, a funny quick side tangent story. The one moment that I realized that I was a lazy piece of crap was I had no money. I was in what's called the outreach program. It was for people with low income, and they would subsidize the cost of a gym membership for like $8 a month. But you had to go at least twice or 2 to 3 times a month to maintain it. Wow. I was like, the day that I was like, you know what, babe, I'm going to go to the gym now. I'm finally going to do it. I show up to the Y, scan my little thing, like, oh, your membership's canceled because you never showed up enough. I was like, oh my God, you mean I never showed up? I didn't even go the 3 times. So that pissed me off because now I have to pay for a full membership, which I'm like invested into, which is only like $25 a month, whatever. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I'm so mad, you know? So I took that anger. I was like, well, I'm going to go every day. And so I started like hammering the gym. And then I got a job at the gym to pay for my membership. And then, you know, I just really fell in love with the community and like all these new friends I was making. Fitness was my savior, you know, it saved my life and it made me the man I am today entirely. And, Jared hired me over at Supplement Superstore. I started working there full time. I was very proud about that. Because they helped me go through my NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, for like personal training certification. So I was feeling kind of special, you know what I mean? I was like kind of happy about myself that I actually followed through with something finally. It was, and I was having a blast, honestly. That was a really good time. And then I lost, my best friend from school who's on my arm, Corey. He just got out of the military and he died in a motorcycle wreck, tragically, just random, you know. And I mean, Corey was my person. Like we were brothers in a lot of ways. I mean, forever we will be. And that really hurt, but what I also realized when that happened was, man, I'm so much stronger now than if it would have happened years ago. I would have died. I would have overdosed. I would have killed myself, you know? And that made me believe even more into what I'm trying to do right now to heal people through movement, exercise, positivity, spirituality, you know? That was a great test for me because that was very, very hard. That was one of the darkest times I went through. Not maybe in a depressive moment because I was handling myself a little bit better, but just emotionally, it was very, very hard for me. And I made it through that, you know, and I also knew the moment I went through that, after I came out on the other side, I also wanted to marry Brittany because she was unwavering through that time. Because how do you really be there for somebody through such a tragedy like that, so unexpected? That, I mean, again, we were brothers, you know, through all those terrible times I went through. Corey was always there to at least put a smile on my face. I mean, look at the picture. That's literally a picture I took of him. Literally putting fake lipstick on and fake glasses while we're driving around.
It's a great
gravel
picture.
roading, actually.
Yeah.
And so
I wish they could see it. It's so cute. He's got those glasses on.
And it's just a perfect example for what he
big,
is.
Goofy smile. Yeah, I love it.
And he was love. And, you know, I never ever said the words, I love you, ever. But when it was Corey and I, we always left the conversation saying, I love you. That was even before I was, you know, that was when I was still man's man kind of shit. You know what I mean? And like, so that's how deep it was and how personal it was. And so when that all happened, I realized, A, yeah, I'm going to marry this woman. But 2, like, this is my future. This is how strong this stuff is. They can save people. And that got me into actually moving up here. This is why I'm even in Columbia, is because they chose me to be the manager for the Columbia store. And so Brittany and I, we packed our stuff up. We moved to Columbia, and this is where we stay. You know, Brittany still works at Jeff City Buckle. She manages that store. She loves it. Absolutely. I've never met anyone who loves what they do as much. She inspired me, actually. So this is part of the story, actually. She inspired me to continue seeking that passion, right? To find whatever it is, because she can work 60 hours a week if she has to and still come home with a smile on her face. I was like, oh my God, like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was managing the store, you know, everything was good. Everything was great, whatever, you know. But I still wanted something more for myself in a lot of ways. And I was very much into that nature therapy, and those natural health supplements had some kind of hold on me, like such a deep curiosity within myself, you know. And so sports supplements are great, you know, they have their purpose, but I was just like kind of burnt out, you know, because I've been doing this since, again, I dropped out of school. I was doing GNC. Like, I wanted something different.
Do you feel like you were being called to that more natural stuff
100%.
In some way? Like there was just
I didn't
something
know
deep
why
inside
yet
of you.
until it comes up to this next part. So they actually fired me because I started my crazy.
Thank you, universe.
Oh, it was insane.
Boot out the door to
It
make
was
you take some action.
exactly, literally. So, and they know if they would have never done that. You know, I hated them at the time. But if I never got fired, I would have still milked that and try to build something of my own, which you just can't do that together. And I was meant for something different, and they knew that. And so they cut that tie, and I was, whoa, life's, you know, Brittany and I just got married at the time. We just bought our duplex, and then I lost my job, and I was like, holy shit, here comes depression again. And I actually was very depressed at this time. Like, man, getting fired unexpectedly has like a ability to jolt you so heavily to the point that you feel as if you're nothing anymore, you know, because that was my identity. I literally identified as like Ethan from S2, right?
Sure,
all my
it's
best friends were there, you know.
Traumatic. I mean, it
was crazy.
Rejection, come back to the abandonment.
And I was still very young,
thing.
you know. I was only like 22 or something like
You've
that.
been through a lot.
It was
in those
crazy.
young years.
It was crazy.
I mean,
and but the reason they fired me is because I started Mind Right on the side. I started as a basic little supplement Kratom company. And I knew Kratom was very special because it helped me get off of hard drugs and manage a lot of my pain.
When was the first time you tried Kratom then?
That would have been back actually when I worked at the Jeff City S2. So
you were already off of the heavy stuff, right? Drinking a little bit.
By the time I got up to Columbia, I was fully clean. By even when I was at GNC, I wasn't really doing anything like that. And then a little bit later is when I understood more about what Kratom even is, because I was buying it at like a smoke shop. I was just like, it was very weird.
Can we go ahead and just talk about what Kratom is so that people have some context?
Kratom
as
is a
tree.
First off, it's a tree, and people will like ingest the leaves of the tree. It's from like Southeast Asia, so like Thailand, Indonesia, and it's a native medicine there. Like people been using it forever, like anti-diarrheal.
There's no stigma around it.
No, they just literally they call it juice, and they make these teas and stuff with it. And
I want to pause there for a second. So for our listeners, this is a highly controversial substance in the United States.
I could go for 2 hours on that part.
Yeah, and I would love to.
Yeah,
I mean, at some point we should do a whole podcast about Kratom.
Short story on that one. Basically, there's a component in an alkaloid in there called mitragynine that's structurally similar to what morphine's like, but that's a very small. That's not even 2% of like the plant material per serving.
There's a lot of chemicals, molecules,
alkaloids
other than
even.
alkaloids.
There's over 40 plus. So like. Basically, in a nutshell, the FDA tried to make this Kratom deadly substance as a pawn off of what's happening out there, which is the narcotics, the fentanyl, all this bullshit. But it's not actually. It's actually a medicine to help and save these people's lives. And the thing is when there's something like that available that works so well, we want to put that boom in the bag because we don't want anybody to use that because then what? You know, that ruins the whole system.
Well, there's a lot of business that would be out of business if we had the means to deal with our own addictions, deal with our own anxiety, deal with our own depression, think of all the things that people take for those things, for ADD, ADHD, and Kratom for different people helps them with different things,
for sure.
As far as I understand.
And that's the thing. Like when I started to understand more of Kratom, the science of Kratom, the history of Kratom, like how it functions, the way it can be used in all different ways, because at that time, a lot of times you only think of people who are like ex-heroin addicts using Kratom, but that's not true. My grandma uses Kratom. My mom can use Kratom. My dad uses Kratom. Like there's all kinds of people that use Kratom in all kinds of ways that don't create issues, or they're not those types of drug people.
Well, I definitely was one of those people for a long time. And really until I came into your store and I saw that Kratom was there, I was like, what is this
dirty thing?
And you're a guy that works there. Is it Clayton?
Yeah,
he was so helpful. But I was one of those people, because you see it on the side of those like dirty smoke shops and like on billboards, and it's not classy looking. Like your store is so cute and classy and like wonderful. But so I definitely had a stigma about it, even though I knew nothing about it, because I was like, whatever they're selling, I figured it was like that K2 trash we were already talking about. Like I just like lumped it into that pile because I was like, it's got to be like that.
Yeah.
But
then you get to know who we are and what we do. We're never about pushing people down. We're about lifting people up. We're about healing, wellness.
Yeah, you're about true, like, let's actually
meet people where they're at.
Cover up the issue.
Let's meet people where they're at. And sometimes Kratom is the necessary product that needs to meet them where they are at, right? To save them, to help them. And that's why I actually opened my store as a brick and mortar, is to give Kratom that cleaner face, that place of safety for people who do use Kratom to not feel dirty or judged or, made to feel that they're doing something bad, right? But also teach people how to manage their Kratom use, how to use quality Kratom. And like there's so much that goes into that. And we don't have to make this whole podcast about Kratom, but I did want to like spotlight it because I'm using it and like infrequently, and I freaking love it. It's incredible. It's incredible.
I love it. Like I am
every time.
I have tried so many herbal supplements, and I mean, just like name it, I've probably tried it. And even things like kava, which people have a lot of success with like stress and things like that. I don't like it.
It's not the same.
It makes my heart race. I don't really like how I feel. Like
it's not the same.
I don't like it. And this is truly like one of the first things that I'm like, I actually feel a difference. I feel, depending on the different strain, I feel different things. And so we'll get in and talk about that too. But I feel a difference. And so the way that my brain works is like, I have to learn everything I can about something. And so I went and watched that documentary, A Leaf of Faith.
A Leaf of Faith.
One. So good.
That was on
so
Netflix
people,
for like a week and a half, and then yanked
got pulled.
It's crazy.
I mean, again, you guys, it is controversial.
Very.
So what I want to say is do your own looking into this. Watch the documentary. Know that, yes, they're trying to paint it in a super safe light.
Yeah.
But like, keep digging. What I do is I like, when there's a doctor on there, I go look that doctor up.
Dr. McCurdy. They're at University of Florida. That's impressive stuff.
Yeah,
but even with Kratom, there's problems, right? There's problems in the industry. There's addictive properties to it that people aren't aware of because of the places they sell it. They just try to push to make money. They don't educate. And nobody needs a Kratom problem when they never even had a problem in the beginning.
Exactly. And that can happen. That is real. So I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Fully.
And that makes you, I mean, not that I thought you wouldn't.
No.
Like everything I've encountered in your store is just so upfront
Very
about everything.
transparent.
But it can be addictive if it's abused. But guys, like alcohol is legal, and that it kills people every single day. Cigarettes are legal, and they kill people every single day.
Long.
Like we are exposed to things that are addictive all the time. Let's talk about 99% of the food in the grocery store in those center aisles, right? Like it's made by engineers to be more addictive.
For
sure.
So that's where, when I decided, I got fired, right? My Kratom company that I was starting in my spare bedroom had nothing to my name. It was just an idea. Also, on top of that, at the time, like Kratom was still this like red flag thing. Like they still had my Facebook account banned, for my business
because of Kratom.
Yeah. And so because you can't advertise, like even the hashtag on Kratom's been hidden since like 2018. So the censorship's been happening to us forever. But nobody would even know.
What year was this when you got fired? You had your little store, but was just in your bedroom?
That was 2018. 2018, I believe, is when I started Mind Right as like a little thing, right? And I just kind of kept sticking with it. It's really hard to grow it at the time because like it was only online, and then online the only way you can actually take somebody's card payment or actual payment, you couldn't take debit cards or anything because that was still high risk. So where I was saying is I just started this thing in my spare bedroom. I didn't really know where we were going with it just because, again, it was such a high risk thing, right? Like what they were saying, which I knew the truth of what things were. So I was like, man, I'm the kind of guy who likes to push the boundaries. Let's figure it out. Let's turn it into a business because everybody's so scared about this drug when I understood the truth and actually why this was happening. And I felt like the whole country just didn't really even understand what this was yet because it was kind of like, what should I say? And it still hasn't reached its peak yet. But like, remember like CBD in like 2012, 2013-ish? It's like, people are like, oh, what is this? But now you see CBD at like every grocery store.
Cannabis. I mean,
very
cannabis.
much so.
You know, my dad, before he died, was a huge advocate for legalizing cannabis. And, you know, I grew up around a bunch of potheads, to be honest with you. And I don't personally love cannabis. I've tried like every strain under the sun, and I really want to like it. It just isn't my thing.
For
like,
sure.
I think there's something
for everyone, you know?
right. And it's like, there's something about my biochemistry that it's just not for me. It doesn't jive with. But my dad was a huge advocate for legalizing, and I had to go again, like dig in and unlearn everything I had learned.
Right.
Even though I grew up around potheads, I had a lot of my own judgments and stigmas and this, that, and the other. But once I like really did my own research and started to dig in, I was like, this isn't what I thought it was. Can it still be a problem for people just like Kratom? Absolutely, yes. Like we need to be responsible and know that these things are powerful on both sides.
100%.
They can be harmful and they can be incredibly helpful.
Respect.
Yeah, but so I understand because that was very much during the time when, you know, moving from like my teenage years where it was like you were still going to jail if you got caught with a little joint, right? To the years of helping my dad make cannabis butter to make his cannabis brownies when he was dealing with his cancer, you know, and and so I went through this huge evolving thing through my whole life, and then all of a sudden it's legal now, right? And like people, like everywhere you go, it smells like cannabis, and it's just so I know when you're talking about Kratom,
the stories being told may not always be true.
Absolutely, and mushrooms, right? Psilocybin. Oh my gosh, vilified. Vilified.
That's actually
and
next
now,
up on my little thing I'm going to talk about.
I would love to talk about that.
That's what transformed me.
So psilocybin, magic mushrooms for people who don't know.
Yes. You have to bring that to forefront. Like and plus there's so many different kinds of mushrooms. But again, back to like the Kratom talk, because that's what Mindright was born off of. My logo's Kratom leaves. Like
I don't think I realized
my little logo. Yeah, that's see it. Those are
I see it now. Yeah, it's a
on
great
the back
logo.
Of my cap, that's actually a Kratom
I did
leaf,
see that when you walked in. You guys, he has this like beautiful big green Kratom leaf on the back of his cap.
And so I understood there was a whole stigma with this that was just all marketing and bullshit, right? And so
you saw through the BS.
Yeah, when you've been through what you have, nothing scares you in that sense anymore. You can't tell me nothing. No government agency is going to tell me how to regulate my body. Okay. And so I was diving into the Kratom company. Everything was going good. I was just learning. I was jiving with it. You know, I was doing some construction at the time, just growing a little Kratom company. And then this was everything turned upside down. And that was because I got bit by that tick. And then this is where the whole Lyme disease story comes into play, right? Like I went from hanging drywall, doing flooring, you know, like I was into it, to not being able to even walk. Like my wife was putting my underwear on me and I was like 23 years old, you know. It was insane. I didn't know. I felt like I was literally dying. I was rotting from the inside. Like doctors, you know what's craziest thing? The first time I ever went to a doctor for this, I went to the emergency room because I thought I was literally dying. I thought my appendix burst or something because it had so much pain in my abdomen. It was crazy. No, I don't know what it was. I don't know. It's just, I just thought something happened in me that I was like, I better go to the emergency room. And, his first line of defense was, and I even told this man, and I was sitting there with my father and my wife at the time. I told this man, hey, I'm in a lot of pain. However, I don't want anything for the pain like that. I want to figure out what is going on. Like, nothing happened. It wasn't an injury. You know what I mean? Like, I told him about tick bite, my arm swelling, the neurological symptoms, like all of this stuff. And I told him about my past addiction. I do not want to touch a narcotic. This man had the audacity to look me in the eye when I told him that. And then by the end of it, he gave me like 10 minutes of his day, maybe. Writes me a script for a muscle relaxer, a painkiller.
It did nothing, like no investigation?
No.
Oh, wow.
This man could have sent me right back to the hell that I came from by not even listening to what I was saying. This is the system. This wasn't that long ago either.
Oh yeah, it happens.
This was
day.
not long ago. This was only like 4+ years ago. Not even, you know.
There are some wonderful caretakers, wonderful doctors out there, but there are some really, really fucking bad ones.
And just
too.
imagine if I wasn't the person I was at that time, I would be dead right now. Because I would have filled that script and I'd be right back in the game and I'd be, who fucking knows, right? Like, he had that power to do that and he could have done that and he did do that, but I didn't follow through with that. And again, that's just because I was spiritually stronger and okay with who I was. Like, I knew this was not the answer too, you know, I wasn't listening.
What was your sense? Did it feel like he just didn't hear you, didn't listen to your story?
He knew what he was going to do the second. Actually,
he just didn't
this
care.
Is what I really believe, low key. I believed he thought he was doing me like a good old boy thing. I think he thought I was actually seeking and that I didn't want to say it in front of my dad or my wife. And that he was low-key going to give me what I want, right? Yeah, I got you, buddy. I got you, buddy. You know, I think that's what he really was doing, and I don't fuck with that at all. Then I got a $3,000 bill in the mail. So I'm like, holy shit. I can't even, you know, because, again, I can't work right now because I can't move, and I'm doing construction. If you can't move, you can't work, right? Like, so we about lost our home. We were missing house payments. We got hit with this giant medical bill. I'm dying. Have no clue what's happening. I'm deteriorating. I lost like 60 pounds, and I was stripped down to my bones. I was going like atrophy. And then my friend, who actually was ex-addict too, was teaching me a little bit about like what psychedelics are, you know, for like depression and like, because I was, again, getting back to kind of like even suicide again. Because I was like, babe, I can't handle this. You know, I had her hide the guns kind of thing. And so he taught me how to use like mushrooms and even a little LSD. And it was these types of experiences that pulled me out of that very dark, deep depression that I was in to give me a little bit of peace, right? And then I also realized, like, holy shit, these are very interesting. Like, these are... I don't have to do this every day to maintain these positive results. Whoa, you know? And I was like totally fascinated. And so I started, again, probably a lot like you get kind of intrigued or curious, you go in and you learn.
I can't help it. It's like I have to.
The book front to back, right? That's exactly what I did. I was like, holy shit, these things are the future. You know, and at that time, nobody was even talking about that. Everybody was still caught into the cannabis talk, which cannabis is great. Cannabis is cool. But I already knew that ship done sailed for me. Like, I was,
for some things,
I'm not
for some people,
into that
for certain
conglomerate
issues.
of people that are even going to be in that cannabis business, because that's already ate up and that's a whole nother thing there. So I was like, man, but I could maybe be into that.
Can I ask you really quickly,
sure.
Were you microdosing or were you
First time I took a big ass trip. Big one.
Yeah.
Because again, I was just like, well, if it's going to work, it's going to work. Let's go. I ate 2 tabs of acid and like 4+ grams of mushrooms, and I thought I died. I thought I died in my bathtub. I don't recommend
so for our
that, guys.
listeners, I was going to say I don't recommend this, but
again,
I didn't want
that's
to know.
just what I am and what I do, and I push limits in a lot of ways, and I'm okay with that in many ways, just because someone has to find out answers and someone has to help bring that to other people with understanding and trust, and to tell them what not to do and what to do, right? And
this might sound really extreme for some people, but let's get perspective on the fact that the amounts of suicide right now are just through the roof.
Very
and so this might
serious.
seem like so extreme, but it's like
when you have
Listen,
nothing to lose, what are you going to do?
when you have, yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And
Like,
I knew it
why
couldn't kill
not?
me. I knew for a fact that it won't cause like an overdose or something. If anything, maybe a manic episode, which is probably already there, and so, but I came out of that and I was like, holy crap. It literally took everything that was in my body, my brain, and my inability to open up and speak of, and it just like shot it out of my head and laid it all in front of me on this like spatial timeline of life. And I understood why I'm here and what happened here to make all these things become who I am now. And I understood this was all put together, and like it wasn't always my fault. And I forgave myself and I cried and I felt great. And I'm still in pain from Lyme disease, but I understood there is a future now, right? And my purpose is to maybe go through the pain that I'm in to help others understand that they can do better for themselves. And I fully believe that still today. And so but now, like, I don't do that kind of stuff. I'll do like a little microdose, just to keep me kind of straight every so often. But maybe for me, that's just what it took to, take that ego and bring it down. So, because the ego's always protecting you, and like when I was in pain, I was very defensive and just, I was also very insecure because I was literally deteriorating and I was getting so skinny. People would say things and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I know I'm dying. So I went through all of that, and believe it or not, like I was I was having a hard time, but that helped me like, okay, I got to find other answers. Like I can't do construction right now because that's just not a feasible option.
It's motivating at the same
Very
time.
much so. And
Right. Where you're like, this is do or die.
I got to do
gotta figure this
something.
out.
And so I had a friend that I used to help out a lot there at the store as too. And I just messaged him because I knew he worked at Veterans United, and I was like, dude, can you like give me a job? Like I need something to where I'm just like sitting down. I'm dying here. But I need money like ASAP. And so, man, I like interviewed like 3 or 4 times, never got hired. And then I finally landed a job at their real estate brokerage. So I worked for Veterans United for a little bit. It helped me really get back on my feet. Like that was a really safe, stable place for me to just like breathe, financially stabilize myself. It helped me also like re-engage with Mind Right again, because I couldn't even think about Mind Right at the time. I was going through all my Lyme symptoms at the peak of all that. I couldn't even think about it. I also gave up on Kratom because I was like, well, maybe Kratom's killing me too. I blamed everything.
Well, I'm
I blamed
sure.
everything.
I mean, you're just trying to get to the bottom
I quit
of
everything.
it.
And I was just like, well, maybe these are the problems, No, it actually came from Lyme disease. But
But you still at that point didn't know that? Or
I had
you
no
figured
clue.
out
I
that-
didn't start treating my Lyme disease until last year, July.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I even started my store Mind Right and everything, not even knowing what was wrong with me. I just knew these natural therapies were saving my life. And so this is kind of the whole story of how we got into the actual store. And so I was still doing Mind Right on the side online, just doing my little thing, just kind of just like a thing for me to be happy with. It wasn't even like something to make money with. It's just like, this is what I love to do, and I like to help people, and it's a necessity for the people that really need it at this time. And it was a really cool thing. And do you believe in God? Like some kind of power.
I'm a very like
funny things happen, right?
Big spiritualist, non-religious.
People come in your
level.
life when you need them, and they do great things because of that. And if you recognize it, and if you're ready, and there's this guy named Steve, and Steve, I found Steve from a Craigslist post. He posted about a little warehouse space he had downtown, up above his old clothes store, which is Savvy's, that used to be next to American Shoe downtown. My first little office, or my second little office, was up above there in this old little storage warehouse that he had. And it was downtown location, so I thought that was just fun, It had everything I needed, and it was cheap. And so nobody was renting it because he was taking pictures like on a flip phone, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't even tell what it was. And so I called him up and I met Steve, and I started renting that place, that little warehouse. I rented it for a couple years. And then again, back to you know, kind of like Veterans United, I was like, man, I really enjoy this, but this isn't where I be forever. You know, I want to get back into what I do best, helping people, talking to people about their health, their wellness, that kind of stuff. And I love supplements. I'm a supplement guy. I like that kind of, I think they're neat. And so I was like, man, Steve, he had a couple units up above there. And I was like, what would you take for rent for one of those? Right. Like just me always coming up with a million ideas. I've come up with a billion business ideas. Like my family got so tired of me because I would just be, it's always something new. What's Ethan up to now? Because I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like that's why I dropped out of school. Like I knew I could do something, right? I just didn't know what it was yet. And
you needed that life experience.
I had
to take you on that journey.
I had
first.
to.
Yeah.
Nobody's ready, you know, until you really just face adversity. And that's all business is adversity all the time. It's chronic stress. I love it. I live for it. It's just who I am. I'm programmed to love that. And Steve saw that, like, because that's what he was. He was just he already retired now, you know. So he really appreciated what I was trying to do too, because his wife dealt with chronic migraines, and Kratom helped her a lot. And so he's like, wow, I've never met anybody who's actually selling Kratom like that, you know? And so I started renting that unit from him. And then over time, COVID hit, and like everybody, obviously, we all know what happened there. Freaking out, business shutting down. It was insanity. However, me, again, I love to push the limits. I also know what's bullshit in the sense of fear, right? I was like, this is a great opportunity for someone like myself who loves to help people with their health, and especially with nature, because I already knew by the time this shit's all over, people are going to be seeking natural alternatives. They're done with this. And so I was like, Steve, because Savvy's, the clothing store there, no one was renting it. And it was really a tough place to rent because it's just not really set up for a lot. And he was eating shit on taxes every month, you know, the whole year. So we worked a deal, and he was like, Ethan, hear me out. I pay like a little over $1,000 a month every month for taxes on this place, and it's just collecting dust. What if you rented this in the unit you already have for like $1,000 a month, and you just gave it a shot? But if somebody came in and wanted to pay market rate for my rental, you got to go. That's the deal. Wow. Month to month, you got to go. I was like, fuck. You know, I got a great job right now. You know, I was doing production, so I was making fat commissions. Like, I was doing great. I could have retired there. Phenomenal. But again, I would have killed myself because I go so hard. You know, I wasn't leaving my computer. I was doing hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. Like, I was driving.
You're all
every
in.
time. You know, I'm here to make money. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was there for. I was there to make money. I had to make some money. We were in a very bad place. Like I said, we almost lost our home. Like, I wasn't playing around, you know. And I was also there to provide for my family, you know. Like, I wanted to do something great and pay back all the shit I've ever done for my wife and all these things, you know. Like, that's just like how I think of things, you know. And I was like, shit, Steve, you're gonna make me quit my job right now. And so that's what I did. I straight quit my job, and I built out a little store in there. It was such a big place that we had to put this ugly partition thing up, just to like make it look kind of full. It literally looked like a little pop-up shop. However, I was like, we're doing it, right? Because I already had an online business, and my online sales were reaching finally at like $1,000 a month. So I was like, what's the downside? I can pay my rent with my online sales, and anything that walks through that door is just a plus, right? That's how I saw it. And so I was like, let's do it. And so we did, and we popped it up, and we were working it, and it was about 3 months into it, this lady comes walking in my building and goes behind my counter, and is like in my closet where I'm storing all my storage. And I'm like, what are you doing, lady? She's like, oh, I actually own the other half of this building. I'm like, what do you mean? There's 2 owners to this building? I didn't know that. He's like, yeah, you didn't know that they're actually selling this half of your building. I was like,
whoa, what?
Whoa, Steve never told me. He never told me because he didn't want to freak me out, but it was happening. And so I call Steve up, and he's like, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. you're going to have to leave unless you want to pay $3,700 a month. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm having $50 days here, you know, like what the hell? And so I was like, holy shit, the exact fear that I had is happening. And so I'm like, what do I do? Because something like my business needs a cool spot to kind of get started, right? Like it needs that foot traffic. You can't market it because of the risk, you know, Kratom, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, man, babe, this is crazy. It's like done before it even got started, you know? And then there was one day I was just walking down to Jimmy John's, down the road to grab a sandwich, and I come across that old Cricket Wireless building, and again, COVID was a friend to us. Like they left, they went to the south side of town, left that lease. Nobody was putting anything in there because everybody was terrified to start a business.
No
one would touch it. So I was like, holy crap, this could be it. Got a hold of Mike, who owns that whole building. Went through. I was like, this is insane. This is perfect. It's smaller. It's exactly what we need. It's cozy. The back half is already set up for production because it used to be actually used to be a yogurt place. So it was a kitchen actually back there that had everything pulled up, but it had like food safe walls, drains, everything that I could just pull all my production into it. I was like, holy crap, this is great. And then I called Steve up. I was like, you know what, Steve, you don't even have to feel bad, dude. I'm moving, you know? And he's like, holy crap, that's great. Yeah. Still no one's renting the old place. Still bare. You go by it, you'll see my old signs up in those. Yeah. Whatever, you know. Yeah. But it pushed me to do that, right?
Right.
I was like, well,
it got you
let's
curious
do it.
and opened you up to another spot, and now you have the perfect spot.
Now I have my dream, which is Mind Right Wellness. It's a beautiful store. I have a beautiful crew, and then with that, you had to start somewhere, right? Like with product. We at the time weren't making our own extracts at the time, but I was using a friend of mine, Eric. He started making. He's also someone I met through the recovery community. He was a heroin addict, spent years in prison, even, you know. He's a genius, like way genius, you know, and he can manufacture anything kind of thing. And he started making these tinctures, and I was like, holy shit. These helped me a ton, like, because I was still feeling really rough, you know. Go ahead.
When you had Lyme, which of the? Actually, I was going to back up and ask you this. So, when you were really down in the dumps and you're trying all these things, do you have anything in particular where you were like, "Ooh, that actually makes me feel better. That helped my pain. That helped my."
First off, Kratom always helped me get through the days that were just trash, like when my hips couldn't even move.
For pain.
Oh yeah, and just general like just energy and focus. Like I had such brain fog and shit. It was insane. I would never been able, because I was working every single day, open and close every single day, and that's very demanding, you know. And so if it wasn't for Kratom, I would have never made it through any of that.
Maybe you could tell them about the different strains.
Oh, sure.
And how it can help with so many things because each of the strains, or not the different strains, but
veins.
The veins. So, thank you.
Kratom is all one leaf. It's never a different like product in the sense like it's only one ingredient. The difference is just how these leaves are aged and processed and dried. And so elder leaves like red veins mature a little bit more. The alkaloids change a little bit and have more of a sedative property, when like the green and white veins are a little younger leaves. And because of that, they have more of like a kind of like more of an uplifting feel, you know. White vein has a little bit more energy than green. Green's kind of more for people with like more like focus issues and anxiety who don't need to be stemmed out, you know, because that creates a little bit more issues. And so I found that green vein helped me a lot because I never was able to like focus through school or anything like that. And my brother was on meds and stuff. I didn't really want to do that kind of stuff. But I didn't like it.
I do feel like it sharpens my mind.
Yeah.
And
it's called getting your mind right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's exactly how that happened too. That's exactly how it was born.
It's like it just kind of, I told my husband, it's like it takes the fuzz, and it's like when you dial the radio in and you get the clear. It's like it just a tiny little bit, and my brain feels a little bit clearer.
And you're not high. You're not on drugs.
No, definitely
you're not
not
tweaking.
Now, I will say, the first time I tried Kratom was when my husband and we didn't drink alcohol for a month. And it was in between. So I like had nothing,
total sobriety.
I think I had total sobriety. Like we weren't even eating sugar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, I started with like the 2 and both of us were like, whoa.
Light you up a little bit.
And he he enjoys cannabis like regularly, so it even made him feel
because it's not
like,
any of the same. They're
It's
not
very
any of the
different.
same.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
associate them a lot of the same, but they're not.
Right.
They're not, I mean,
No,
one's a
they're
tree,
very
one's a weed. You know,
right. And the receptors they're working
entirely
on
different systems.
so
Yeah, you got
different. Yeah.
opiate receptors, and then you have cannabinoids in your body. You know, CB1, CB2 receptors. Those are totally different pathways, have totally different functions, and the pharmacology that that is needed to activate those systems are entirely different.
Yeah, it was interesting though. It felt like all my receptors were cleaned out almost because I wasn't doing anything.
Crazy
and then,
thing, and I'll even put this on record. I've had a lot of ex-COVID people talk about how they have never felt back to normal after that until they did a little bit of Kratom, and then that like helped something to the point that they felt normal again.
Interesting.
Multiples of that.
Yeah,
crazy shit. You don't even know. You know, it could be anything.
Right, and like the problem is, I think because there is such a stigma in the United States, and there's censorship, and there's all these issues. There isn't the amount of research that there could be.
Oh, no.
I mean,
no.
it's like it's in the baby stages here.
A lot of it's mainly for like pain research even, but there's so much broader applications for Kratom and its medicinal use than even just that. Like, and they're getting there. They will, whatever. I don't need that to justify, you know, because I have so much anecdotal research.
I don't either. I just love it.
It's great. I love to read it too.
I'm like, oh, that's so interesting.
But the thing is Kratom ain't going to heal you, right? Like it's a Band-Aid in a lot of ways. There's nothing about that that's going to heal my Lyme or any of that nature, you know? And with that, I wanted to be well. It's Mind Right Wellness, you know? It's not just Mind Right Kratom anymore. Like we're a wellness shop. We're about wellness. We're about health. And I wanted to figure out how to transition people from who are even doing like heavy Kratom use into just being more well, you know, because I had to find that for myself, because doing just a ton of Kratom ain't going to help you. And so that's where the mushrooms come into play. You know, the mushrooms were that segue into finding balance, wellness, you know, deeply internally, you know, finding that level of just health, you know, rather than just relying on a Kratom dose or something of that.
Right. Because like you said, those things are kind of like Band-Aids.
Totally.
Okay. So mushrooms are different though.
Yes.
Because they actually do what? I mean, I've looked into this. They actually change us.
Yeah. They actually have like immune modulating effects, you know, they have adaptogenic effects, you know, rather than just a psychoactive effect, which is a lot of Kratom's component, which it also has a lot of like, you know, alkaline properties to it, but it doesn't have what mushrooms create. And it wasn't until I started functioning with or using and experimenting more, and not with psychedelics or anything of that nature, but like functional mushrooms. Eric taught me a lot about these things because it also helped him get clean too and find that wellness. He was actually going through a Suboxone detox. Suboxone is what you take to, you know, it blocks opiate receptors.
Right.
And so like opiates don't work anymore. However, detoxing off Suboxone is insane. Like months it takes. Like it's not just a quick withdrawal like you would with opiates. Like it's this tapered out and dangerous process. And he was going through this at the time. We became good friends. And I believed in him, you know, and so we joined together, and I was like, man, you know, I have mushrooms in my store because I know that was cool. I didn't fully understand like the full benefits because I never really experienced the benefits because what I was selling it was subpar mushroom product, and I didn't really understand the industry on the mushrooms yet. And so I was just buying the bigger names of things, you know, like, you know, the host defenses and stuff like that. Myceliated products, like products that are dime a dozen straight up that aren't.
They're just not as potent, right? And they're not high quality.
They're not what you need if you're trying to heal, right? Like they can help some people, but they weren't helping me. And so I was like, you know what, Eric, these are fire. Like whatever you got going here, dude, like I believe it because I'm feeling that. The cordyceps, restoring those energy levels, restoring my adrenals, you know, like they were shot.
I take cordyceps from your store every morning now.
It's a miracle.
I love it.
I know.
I love it.
It's absolutely absurd once you start to
It is
experience it, you're like,
so
holy
nice. Yeah.
crap. You know, the lion's mane, the turkey tails, the reishi, the chagas.
Can we go through each of them and just
Yeah,
talk about,
I
because we
love
talked
them.
about cordyceps just now.
Cordyceps
the energy
has the
boost.
energy guy, you know, the stamina. It increases lung capacity, so oxygen levels. People with like asthma issues or people who love to train.
Interesting.
You know, cyclists, runners, that kind of stuff has crazy output.
Endurance.
Yes,
Right.
it's very neat. Lion's mane, more of that brain antioxidant. It helps a lot with like mental focus, brain fog. It also has antioxidant properties to help remove waste materials from your brain. So like amyloidic plaque, which is a big causation of like dementia, you know.
Alzheimer's. Yeah.
So it has these abilities to help remove waste materials. It has ability to stimulate what's called nerve growth factor. Nerve growth factor is just stimulating nerve pathways. So people, like I was dealing with a lot of neuropathy from my Lyme disease because it attacks your neural system. I mean, at one time I couldn't even like feel my feet or wiggle my toes. Now I'm like, you know, I can redo that shit. I'm still in pain a lot of times, but I'm not like, I'm functioning, you know, way better than a lot of these other people with chronic Lyme issues. So that's really fascinating. I mean, some of the stories I have, I could go into on that. It's just absolutely insane. I mean, people with seizures, you know, not having seizures anymore. Like it almost sounds science fiction. And again, you can't forget none of these have any head highs. You know what I mean? They're fully medicinal mushrooms, no addictive qualities, nothing of that nature.
Just nature's medicine.
100%. And they've been around forever. And Chinese know a lot of this stuff. They've been using these forever. They're absolute masters of the mushrooms.
Of years.
Yeah, they have mastered this. They've mastered the grow of mushrooms, the extraction, all of it. A lot of it comes from Asian culture that I've studied a lot of. Reishi, very fascinating, heavily adaptogenic.
Could you talk about what that means? I know what
adaptogenic means a lot of people like heard of like ashwagandha, right? Like these are types of things that can modulate like your immune system up, down, however your body's reacting, because everybody's different and their reactions need, like for instance, autoimmune disorders. It's just because you have a hyperactive immune system attacking your own system, your own body. You know, adaptogens can help modulate that to more of a homeostasis level.
They kind of adapt to whatever that person needs.
Dial
as far
down,
as I
dial
understand.
up,
like
you know.
One person might need it to do one thing and another person needs something else.
It's entirely different to the host.
It's fascinating.
It's incredible. It's a
amazing.
Miracle. But also like stress levels, like cortisol hormones, all these things that wreak havoc on your weight gain, your sleep, you know, your hormones, all those things have a big issue with our mental wellness, our health, our inflammation. So it helps a lot with stabilizing those types of things. A lot of people take it before bed, help with stress. I have a lot of parents.
And that's reishi, the one that will bring it down.
Yeah, I have a lot of parents that even give it to their hyperactive kids. Instead of medicating the shit out of their kids, they give them a little tincture dropper or a couple caps of the reishi, and the kids are sleeping fine. They're functioning in school, and they're not on drugs. Yeah. Fascinating. Right. Turkey tail's really cool. Turkey tail's one of my favorites because when I started into my Lyme treatment from an actual Lyme literate doctor, God bless him, Dr. Charles Christ, anybody listening to this?
Is that a local person?
He's actually an Ashland, and he's a world-renowned infectious disease doctor.
Wait, what's his name?
Dr. Charles Christ. He's a little aggressive for some people, you know.
Like his personality?
His personality is real dry. Like, he may not fit everybody's, you know, cup of tea, whatever. I don't give a shit about that.
Well, as long as he can help people feel better.
Exactly. Yeah. But he also does some, like, aggressive regimen, like antibiotics and stuff that some people may not agree with. But the dude knows what he's doing. And if you just trust the man, like, he can save your life. And he did. Because he started, I did like 10 plus months of antibiotic regimens, which have its benefits, but also its side effects. I mean, my gut was wrecked because it kills everything, you know, good or bad. And so trying to restore a lot of that biome, and he's very much about that too. Like, he doesn't just leave you out to dry, you know. But I also knew a lot about like the gut health and biome and all that stuff. And so the turkey tail is neat because it's a prebiotic. It's a fiber source for like good bacteria, like probiotics to cultivate and reproduce and feed off of as energy. And so if you need to rebuild like a gut biome, which has a direct impact on your mental health, your immune system, your white blood cells, you need to have something to assist the healthy bacterial units to continue to cultivate. And that's the beauty of turkey tail, it has that prebiotic ability. And so people who go through a lot of like treatments, for instance, like my antibiotics, or like cancer people who've been radiated, every cell in their body's confused, it has, and that's directly proven. Anybody can look that up about the anti-cancer properties or the rebuilding abilities of turkey tail. So like a lot of people who've gone through that still, if you want to do traditional treatment for sure. Right. But like to help recover after that, they really assist in that process. So you just may not deteriorate maybe as much as the other person,
or even throughout. I mean,
that's a big one. And I have a lot of people that do that because of that. Chaga, one of the strongest antioxidants known to man in food. Per 100 grams in chaga is like literally 100 times more antioxidant content than like blueberries.
Wow.
So like a lot of the common like antioxidants we think of like are the best, chaga just absolutely blows it right out of the water. It has DNA support, free radical scavenging abilities, it also has a really high content of melanin, so it's really healthy for your skin.
Interesting.
Reduce burns. All kinds of weird stuff like that,
For burns, is that like a topical thing, or it's still taken internally?
Yeah,
Wow.
your skin's more resistant.
Wow.
A lot of like snowboarders and stuff use a ton of chaga to reduce the sun reflection off the snow. Lots of random stuff.
So interesting.
I know.
I mean, it really is nature's medicine. I'm endlessly curious about
And
what we're
just
going to
getting
learn about
started
them.
on
Yeah, I
that,
was going to say, we're
it's like,
just,
holy
just
crap.
starting to understand, and they are safe. And they work.
They do.
And from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the reason they're not a Band-Aid is because they really are going in and doing like, I don't want to say structural, but like long-term work.
I call it deep work.
Deep work. They're doing deep work so that it's like
stuff.
You don't have to take it every day.
No.
Because you're changing as you take these mushrooms.
For sure.
Right?
I still take them every day because I'm in a disease state. Chronic Lyme is something you deal with forever. And that's just something a lot of people have to accept in a lot of ways. I may not be as symptomatic, but it can re-trigger itself according to whatever may happen, foods or maybe even another tick bite, right? Like it's always kind of dormant in a lot of ways. And so, but also I take these things just to function more as like my daily multivitamin, knock on wood, but we don't ever get sick, all throughout this whole time of whatever, last few years, both my wife and I are around hundreds of people every day. We don't ever get sick, and we just keep going, and also at that time I can't miss work too. I was like working every day. If I miss work, I have to close the store, and that's not possible. That's not happening. And so that's how serious it was. But that's also when I understood, like, damn, these things really work. What the heck? And so that's when we got into really refining our own extraction process and understanding what's of value and how to present that to people to actually let them use it and notice the difference, right? And that's what really started to blow up. Like once we started putting high quality, potent mushroom extract products in front of people to use, I mean, they just sold themselves after that.
Right.
I mean, that's just what they do. And so that's what we kind of come to be as Mind right? We kind of are the mushroom people, the Kratom people. We love CBD and stuff of that nature. CBD's kind of died down, but it still has its place.
Yeah.
I love a good CBD tea before bed. You know what I mean? But
I'm actually using it's got turmeric. I want to say lion's mane.
Are you talking about triple threat?
And
the turmeric, lion's mane, and CBD?
And the CBD.
Combo? Yeah, that one's a special one.
And I actually bought that I went into your store and I bought it for my son because he plays baseball and football and he cracks his head, and I went in and I was like, I need some anti-inflammatory stuff. I went in specifically looking for CBD because I know that it's good for anti-inflammatory and brain injury stuff and everything. And I can't remember. It was the gal that works there. Ireland was like, oh, actually what you need is this. And so I got it for my son. He does use it, but I've been using it. And one of the most interesting things, I just put this together this morning. It's helping my allergies. My seasonal allergies, which makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But
because that's just an inflammatory response
right.
itself.
But I never have allergies except this time of year, like right now. And I woke up this morning and they haven't been that bad this year. I've been sneezing here and there. My eyes get red and itchy, but it is like nothing compared to what it used to be. And I kept thinking like, oh, maybe it's still coming. It still could be, whatever. But what I realized was my eyes were itchy this morning. I did that tincture. I always like hold it under my tongue for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think because it's like all right there.
Yeah.
Gets through that blood-brain barrier really
it
quickly. And my eyes stopped itching and burning. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell Ethan.
This is what it does.
I know you're not shocked, but
No,
for people listening, they might be
it's
like,
just like, that one's such a cool product because actually that product doesn't exist anywhere else. It's an entirely unique product. You can look that combo up.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the entire world, no one makes that.
That's cool. I felt like it was like divinely guided that it ended up in my hands that day.
That was all me and Eric just getting our
awesome.
heads together and figuring out how we can combine these 3 awesome ingredients into a single tincture extract that people can use easily.
Yeah.
And
I love tinctures, by the way.
Oh, they're great.
I love them.
They are super functional, fast acting, very pure too, and so, yes, that's a really, really neat one. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we become what we are. I mean, we have such a variety, as we kind of stated at the very beginning, between the Kratom selection. We're definitely the Kratom specialists here in the Missouri area. I mean, we're the one source for not only the highest quality Kratom, but the educational piece and the respect of Kratom,
beautiful. Yeah. I can tell that you're really dedicated to educating people so that they understand why they're putting something in their body.
It makes no sense not to, and like I know for a fact we're always our best advocate. And by empowering people with education, people can make now more educated decisions and not also pass the blame to other people, right? Because it's their choice now. When it's your choice, not our choice to tell. We didn't sell you on that. You know what I mean? You decided to take this and you benefited from it. That itself is empowering. Making a decision for your own self and then actually getting positive results from it is only going to lead people into more curiosity of what these things do.
Definitely.
And that is our whole, I guess you can call game plan, is you educate people, they'll come back. Because one, I already know the products work. Our customer service is A1. Outside of that, our product quality is, no one could touch that, and because we make sure of that.
And quality matters so much, especially with
why even be in business
Kratom,
if you
right?
ain't got it? Yeah.
Because
oh my God,
there
yes.
have been, right, like we don't have to go too deep into that,
Yeah.
but just so people know,
It's a food product.
They're right, like it's not regulated.
No.
And it can be dangerous. And
For sure.
There have been accounts of people, if you're not buying it from a reputable source,
Yeah.
being like really, really bad stuff in it.
You could get sick, and like with any plant, and if you're not testing, a lot of people won't spend the extra money to do the testing for like heavy metals, bacteria, alkaloid content. You'll have artificially spiked Kratom out there. They do all kinds of weird shit, like in the places that love to push drugs, So again, that's not necessarily even my problem because I don't care about that stuff anymore. If people want the real stuff and they want real healing and love, they come find us. And that's how people find us every time. It's just they're in a spot. They said, I'm done with it. And they look on Google and they just find something that's nature related. Then they see our reviews and they decide, hey, we'll come in. And then they have a great experience. They get something that actually works and they're impressed. They tell a friend.
You still have your online shop, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like
That's
you ship
blowing
all
up
over the
now.
place. Yeah.
And so one thing that's finally really cool about that, within the last year and a half or so, they finally allowed people like myself, Kratom vendors, to take debit card payments. Woo! As a normal business now, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so,
well, that's a big win.
you got to think like for over 3+ years, I try to grind this thing to grow online with people, which is already sketchy, right? Buying Kratom. Now they have to put their routing number and account number, and it's going to pull out of your account in 3 days like a check. What the hell?
Yeah, that feels weird.
Okay.
I am 100% sure had I tried to buy before that happened, I would have been like, wait, what?
You would have never followed through with that.
I don't think I would have.
And
I
plus,
think I
you're not
would've-
talking to us face to face. You're online, And so it's just like not happening.
I don't think I would have.
It would have never happened.
I think the only way I was going to do this was exactly how it
the way
happened.
we built it to be.
And Clayton, I have to give him so much credit because he talked to me for like 35, 45 minutes and just...
The man cares.
He cares and he's so knowledgeable. I mean, as are you, of course, and Ireland
We take
as well.
training very seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not I'll work every single day and every single hour if I had to, if I didn't trust my people, and I would never have anybody in my store talking to people about their health and life if they don't understand the process, and they do. That's why they also been there for over 2 years. You know what I mean? Having a retail team that stick around for that long, unheard of. No one sticks around in retail that long, but they do because they love what they do, and we get results. And
it's a mission.
Oh, it matters.
It's a mission.
When people come back and be like, honestly, I owe you my life. That's not what we do it for. We do it because they needed someone. They needed someone, and we were them. I needed someone at time that I needed it. I didn't have that, so we built that. And it's very, very much more, it's even more applicable to today's world than it even was then, just because shit has gotten so bad since then. I mean, just in all areas, you know, in every area. And so people just want a place to feel heard, cared about, safe, respected, clean, and a place to talk about healing and love and all the stuff that we need to move forward with life. Hope is key. Hope is everything. And I know what we do will provide that for people. It just comes down to being willing to open up, talk to us a little bit, be willing to try something new. Like, that is the key. We just are there to present options and tools. We're not the answer. There's that holistic, what you do. All of these are pieces to puzzles that people need for them to continue their healing process.
And I always say, just keep trying things.
Yeah.
You know, I know it can be expensive. Trust me, I know, because I've tried a bazillion different things, but keep trying things, because we're all so unique and so different. And just, there's no way there's going to be a one size fits all. And then you might find something that works for a little bit, and then the universe wants you to go in a different direction and try something else. So just.
And that's why we've actually expanded our selection so much. Like, you know, again, we were born off of a Kratom company. And I've always been a cannabis guy ever since the days that we were able to, you know, talk about cannabis. I was using cannabis before it was ever that, you know, but it's fascinating how we can have cannabis products, you know, just there to be another piece, you know. And so that's kind of how we use our store. We have it kind of in a circle format. We kind of have these options. And if you need a little higher up option, we have those options to hit a little bit, you know. Sometimes you need something a little faster right now, or like a little bit more noticeable. And like we, meet people where they're at, and figure out what they need, provide those options and tools, provide the education. And then from there, it's just, you know, we build that relationship. And so far, it's turned out really well. We've been doing extremely well. We're about to go on our 3rd year of actual just a brick and mortar store. And I'm very proud about that. I'm very proud about what we're doing.
And such a warrior to do it during COVID. I'm so impressed. Yeah,
honestly, it was the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, like, it wasn't even scary to me because I didn't give a shit, right? Like, I already knew what it was. Second all this stuff popped off, I was like, here we go, you know, wait until the next one comes though.
Well, that's why we're having this conversation, so people know that there are options for immune health, and that's what I will say about that.
Get on it now.
I think that a lot of people are becoming aware that the one option that we've been presented with didn't work that well.
No. Aside, what we do know is our stuff works, and it's a great assistant to, you know, anything that you're going to go through. And so the best thing you could do now is start exercising, drinking your water, get your vitamins, sunshine. Eat well, get your sunshine, ground, and then use nature to help assist you when you need it. And that's what we do. We're that piece, you know.
And tap into your intuition and really listen to what it's saying and make choices from that place when you're clear.
You're always your best advocate, and don't ever let anybody tell you any different. You know, your body intuitively knows what it needs in a lot of ways, you know. But the thing is if you stop searching for those answers, you're never going to find them. And it's not going to just land on your lap most days, and it's going to be very frustrating. It's going to be a long journey for you. But it doesn't have to be. There's resources, especially here in the mid-Missouri, like Columbia area. Huge network of awesome people, healers, people that care, you know. And that's why I'm so happy to do and start things in Columbia, because it's the perfect place for Mind Right to have a home, you know. It fits in great because of the mindset that kind of has been adopted here in Columbia. It's progressive in a lot of ways. And I'm excited to continue to spread the message of what like mushroom health will do for people. Continue the Kratom message, of course, saving those lives, because those lives matter, whether you're addicted to hard drugs or not. Like, everybody's lives matters. And like, for instance, I have a good friend, heavily addicted to fentanyl at the time. Very bad deal. Very bad deal. He was about to lose everything, but he wanted it. He wanted to change, and you could feel that he sensed that. I sensed that, you know. He couldn't do it by himself, and he finally understood that. He's a very strong man, you know, physically and just mentally and spiritually. But that shit had a hold on him, and he couldn't get off, you know, because it's so strong and dangerous. I had him clean in no time. fully clean today, got his business back running. He's actually making a ton of money, and about to have he just had a baby.
That's great.
Saved his marriage, saved his relationship, all because he's clean now. All because someone cared to give him a chance. Because I sat there and listened to him and met him where he's at. Now he has a chance to continue on, because that's not who he was. That's just what drugs were for him. And so, like, everything matters. Everyone matters. And I'm just honored to be a piece of that. Like, God called me to do that. And I wouldn't know what to do with my life outside of that, straight up, you know.
I'm glad you listened. And I hate, in your short, not that you have had a short life, but in a short span of time, you had a lot going on.
It's been a lot, for sure.
So I just have to thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. It's
Thank you for listening.
really beautiful. I want to say congratulations to you and your wife for making it. And
did you know we're about to have a baby?
No.
Oh, I didn't tell you that?
No.
Holy crap.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, she's 14. We just actually, that's where we're at this morning. Had another baby appointment. Healthy baby boy is what we were having.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so his name's going to be Marcus Lee Jones.
I love it.
Lee was my best friend Corey's middle name.
Oh, I love it.
And so I'm very proud about that. And I can't wait to be the best dad possible. And I know I will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're doing great work here in the world, and I'm so happy
Thank you.
pulled
Thanks
through
for
those
having
hard
me.
times. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I
thanks
love
for being
talking
here.
about things like this. It's kind of newer for me to kind of start sharing that story and message a little bit, because I've been so heavily focused on everyone else, you know. But the message is a part of who I am in my life, and people can relate a lot to it, regardless if they been through the same things. We all have the shit, right? Like, we all have that shit that we carry, and all I hope is to not make the story about myself, but to the point that people can hear it and then internalize it for themselves, and then realize, like, oh, there is a possibility. Like, you can change. Like, there is a future if you just don't give up. And there's so many times I could have, but I didn't. And it had all been done in vain if I did. And I never forget that. A good friend of mine told me that. Like, there was a time I was so down bad. Like, I just got fired. I was like, dude, what if all this is just, why? You know, why don't I just stop? Maybe it's bad even, you know? Like, I just didn't know what I was doing. And he straight up told me, he's like, if you quit now, everything you've gone through, all the pain, all the struggle and depression that you've overcome is all done in vain. Like, why would you ever do that? And I was like, damn, dude, you're so right. Like,
Yeah. So wise.
So we are here to live another day. And like, it's just, you know, we're always, you know, I call it like standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, you know, all the people who preceded us before, like, built these ways and avenues for someone like me, you know, a younger kid, to come in and not care about the stigmas of things because of all the, you know, the people that were jailed, you know, for all this crazy shit, you know. It's like, so I respect that entirely. It wasn't me who did these things. Like, it's all the people before me who sacrificed to provide me this opportunity to maximize it and continue to spread that message in safety too. And so that's the blessing, and that's where I'll never turn my back to this kind of stuff, because those people gave their lives, some of them even, to continue on for people to have access to plant medicines. And I take that very seriously.
It's been a rocky road, but I have see so much positive feedback in our world that natural medicine really is like emerging in a way that I've never seen in my life.
Yeah.
And
Isn't it so cool?
It feels like,
I
it feels
know.
like the suppression and the repression. I know it's still there, but I'm hopeful. I feel like it's.
And I saw this coming.
Yeah.
That's why I did this, because I knew I'm going. I just knew.
We're doing it.
I just knew. You can't deny something that's so real. You can't. Like, and as much as people want to try that, you know, between different agencies and blah, 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 you just can't. With today's technology and communication, the truth is there.
It's there.
It's there,
Yeah,
and you just dig
look
for
for
it,
it.
and
Dig for
also
it.
experience it for yourself. You know, you could read and listen all day long, but until you understand it for your own self, then you really know the truth, and no one can tell you any different after that. That's right. And I stick to that. That's my guns every time. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been such a
That was
pleasure.
a good time.
This has
Hope
been a really
everybody
great
enjoyed
conversation.
listening to this. Come see me downtown. Mind Right Wellness. It's downtown Columbia, Missouri. We're right next to like Jimmy John's Hot Box Cookies, right off Broadway downtown, right on the Strip. You can't miss us if you're familiar with the Columbia area. Or you could find us online, mindrightwellness.com.
Yeah.
You can find every selection we have there online. And
they ship
we ship
wherever.
all across the country every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank
Ethan.
you.
I so appreciate
Thank
you.
you.